So good morning, sisters and friends. Welcome to the 20th anniversary Public Symposium of the Center for Women's Global Leadership at Rutgers University.
This is an event to commemorate 20 years of the Center for Women's Global Leadership. As you all know, I have very recently, in September, become the executive director. And when we were thinking about what the symposium would do, we wanted to commemorate the 20 years of exceptional work of the Global Center, but we also understood that we're at a critical juncture in terms of feminist movements and feminist organizing. One thing that we all know is that there definitely is a right-wing backlash against women's rights, especially reproductive and sexual rights and bodily integrity. The economy worldwide is in crisis, and we as feminist organizers are confronted with many of the same issues that we worked on for a very long time, and new issues that we need to strategize and plan. So we were hoping that this space and this day-long symposium is a place where we can sort of come together and think about these issues collectively.
I'm glad to see there are quite a number of young women here for this 20th anniversary symposium. I'm at the other end of the scale. I'm now officially designated an elder. The Elders is a group that has been brought together by Nelson Mandela, and we're chaired by Archbishop Desmond Tutu. And we gave a lot of thought as to how we might try to be supportive of equality and empowerment of women and girls. We consulted very widely over more than a year with women's groups, with possibly with many of you, and I'm sure with Charlotte. And we decided that what the elders should do is to focus on equality for women and girls by calling for an end to the use of religious and traditional practices to justify and entrench discrimination against women and girls. I am actually of the view that we can make very significant progress over the next 10 years, that we can see almost a sea change. When I was in Ethiopia, I learned that the African Union has designated the next 10 years as the decade for African women. I think what we can do is say the next 10 years are the decade for women and girls worldwide, that we make the difference that we know we have to make. We make up for some slippage, particularly on sexual and reproductive health and rights, over an 8-year period dictated by the administration in this country, having impacts both in the United Nations and at ground level worldwide. That we use the organizational power of women in the informal sector in particular to change the attitudes towards economic empowerment of women by realizing that we need to ensure more social protection and remove barriers in the informal sector so that women will have much more economic empowerment. Go to where women are working and help to remove the barriers and the discrimination. So let's make it that active decade and let this symposium give real leadership in it. Thank you very much.
Thinking about what did I want to say today, I, like many of you, being an old 60s activist, remembered a slogan we used to have here in the US in the 1960s called "Revolution is a Symphony of Liberations." And this was in the period, of course, of women's liberation, black liberation, gay and lesbian liberation movements as such. What women's human rights, I think, has given us is a symphony of our different issues under a common framework. It's not that we all do the same work. It's that we all work on particular pieces of something, but we understand that the music is made by all of those instruments being heard, and that when any of those instruments isn't heard or isn't succeeding or isn't moving forward, we have less success in creating the music, the change, the movement that we want. So in celebrating this 20 years, I want to think about how do we keep the thread of this bigger picture in front of us, and as we fine-tune our instruments for addressing the challenges today in the areas of body, economy, and movement, that these are recurring themes and we need new variations of our strategies for them, but they all require that we figure out how they fit into that larger social movement, that symphony of liberations that will produce the movement of the next decade. Thank you.
Sexual and reproductive rights, which I've worked on forever, are not exclusively owned by feminists or by biological women.